You probably recognize the name as the Dallas salon owner who stood up against government overreach and was jailed for opening her business, which she did in order to feed her own family and provide for the families of her 20 stylists. She founded a charitable organization called Courage to Stand, a nonprofit that helps those who've struggled with government shutdowns to get back on their feet. The combination of her life and experiences along with her conservative values have provided the perfect catalyst for someone who's ready to stand up for the rights of the people. She has felt God's calling in everything she's done, which led her to run for the SD 30 Senate race right here in the state of Texas. Let me give you her website, ShelleyLuther.org. Welcome to America Stands, Shelley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So glad that you are here.
Me too, and not in jail.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you did spend 2 days in jail.
I did, two full days.
Yeah, because you tried to feed your family and feed the families of those that work for you.
Right.
Talk about that experience, Shelley.
It seems like it was a year or two ago now that we've done so much since then, but I don't know. I mean, it was just, I felt led the whole time, and it was a moment that I can't explain, because the fear I did not have, and not really paying attention to what was going on. I just wanted to take care of my immediate, family and my employees.
Now, the response was overwhelming. I mean, people from all over America.
The response is crazy. That's what was the craziest part about all of it, because we received, a GoFundMe account while I was in jail. I mean, it's crazy. You go into jail with like $60,000 of people wanting to help you with attorney fees, and then when you get out 48 hours later, there's $500,000.
Yeah.
But not just that, the outpouring of support and love from across the world. We received 600 handwritten letters.
Wow.
Handwritten.
So you went from jail to something that some people think is even worse, into politics.
It wasn't that quick. When I got out of jail, we visited states all across the nation. Carl Mankey in Michigan, we helped him keep his barbershop open, and he was actually very successful in that. And with the foundation money, we help people try to get back on their feet. Basically what I feel like politicians should be doing, and they're not anymore. Yeah. But when the seat opened up, it happened to be Pilot Point is where I live, and it happened to be exactly the district I could run in, and I felt like it was a sign.
Well, the thing about you is you're not a politician. No. Which I think works in your favor in the eyes of many. But you just really felt strongly that this was something you were supposed to do. Why was it so strong on you to go ahead and do this?
Once I was put in jail, you get 48 hours of dead silence, basically. You get to think and pray a lot. And I just told God at that moment, I'm just going to listen. And so I really haven't made any of my own decisions since then. Yeah. I'm just listening and doing what I feel like He's telling me to do.
Yeah. I know while you were going through this, Ted Cruz was one of the many people that reached out in support of you. What did that mean to you?
He is pretty cool. I really like Ted Cruz. It was funny because he said his wife Heidi said he was growing a mullet and needed to get his hair done anyway. But just for him to come out and say, for this woman to go to jail for what she believes in, she's standing up for 29 million other Texans. But for him to stand out, that means that he's not acting like a politician. Yeah. Because they usually don't. They're afraid to stand up and say something.
Speaking of what you believe in, there's been a lot of things said about you and written about you from your opponent and those that don't support you. Take a minute and tell people who you are and what you believe in.
Well, I'm a daughter of a 26-year Marine veteran, a Master Gunny Sergeant, so that's where I get kind of that grit, I think. But I was a school teacher for 13 years. I've ran a sales floor of over 250 people, and I'm a small business owner. And to me, that gives me a lot of experience for this position. And I don't have any ties to Austin. That's the biggest thing. I don't owe anybody anything. I have no ties to anybody. My vote goes to the people.
Sounds strangely familiar to the guy on 1600 Avenue.
It sounds very familiar to that. So we've brought you the stories of different ones. We've talked to people that are state representatives, state senators. You guys, and I know some of you have wondered, why are they always talking to state senators and state representatives? Because that's the tip of the spear. That's the point. All of these laws, election laws and all, are made in state houses. And so that's where she's headed, a state house. It can't be done by judges, and because that's not constitutional. So I applaud you for running for office and entering into the fray.
Thank you.
I did that myself. I used to carry around a Jimmy Johnson cutout. You know who Jimmy Johnson,
of course,
the race car driver?
Sure.
And he had his NASCAR suit on with all these patches. And I said, those are his supporters. He's going to be loyal to Lowe's because Lowe's is one of his major supporters. I think politicians ought to have to wear patches of who's supporting them so that you know who they're loyal to.
That's true. There are a lot of liberal donors that have actually given money to my opponent.
Wow. And you are being supported by pretty much everyday Americans, right?
I love it. I love that my supporters are small business owners. They're regular people that are down in the trenches when all of this was going on. And that's more important to me than any of the House representatives or any of these other people. I'm not going to get their endorsement anyway.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. You're in a runoff here in Texas, and her district's huge. It goes all the way from West Texas. Is Wichita Falls West Texas? Is that considered West Texas? Well, okay, never mind. What do I know? I'm not from there. All the way across to the Oklahoma border, down into Dallas, Wise County, which is part of where we are right now. And you get this big area. When you get to Austin, how are you not going to change and become one of them?
Well, I don't care if I have any friends. That's not why I'm there. I have the sole purpose of going to the Republican platform. And it's almost like I'm a teacher. You give me a list of things to do. I want to check things off. And I feel like that hasn't happened. And so it's very simple. I'm going to bring forth these bills or work with people that are already trying to put these bills into place. And I want to see a record vote so we get some transparency on who we need to vote out in 2 years.
What's one thing that your opponent has said about you that is absolutely not true that you want to set the record straight on today?
He says that I support Black Lives Matter, which is ridiculous because, first of all, I would have already been dead. My dad would have killed me. Second of all, they wanted to torch my salon during the rioting that was going on, and I've had death threats from them. So there's no possible way I would support BLM. The organization, the Marxist organization, I feel like it started out as something that could have been good, but it definitely turned into something bad. And I definitely do not support BLM.
As you've knocked on doors, you've met people, what have you learned? What's the lesson you've learned about people in general?
I think that they're just genuinely wanting to live their lives and want to be left alone and want to, especially in Senate District 30, do not want Austin coming into our district. They're very scared of that, especially with the transgender curriculum and things like that. We don't want a statewide curriculum. We want in the schools like locally governed things because we're so different than, say, Dallas, Austin, and we're the backbone, I feel, of Texas and what people really think Texas is about. And I don't want that to ever change.
Well, I thank you for your courage and what you've done and what you're doing now. So that election, that runoff election is again when? December?
It's December 19th, but early voting December 9th.
Well, there you go. That's just right around the corner. Now, listen, if you're from out of state, you can't move in to Texas and vote in her runoff.
I wish.
I'm just doing a preemptive out there for Georgia right now. Okay, we're not bringing people from California in to vote in this election. All right.
Yeah.
Her website once again is ShelleyLuther.org. ShelleyLuther.org. Go on the website, check her out, kick the tires, find out what she's all about. If you know somebody that lives in her district, I will encourage you to do this, to vote.
Yeah.
To get out and be part of the process.
Greg, I will say this. If you live here in this state, if you live in her district, do your due diligence. Find out the truth. Don't Pay attention to the mail-ins, the mail-outs that you get. Pay attention and do your due diligence, because sometimes politicians aren't all that they say they are. And I'll just leave it at that.
Now, yeah, and the thing there is, you saw. Here's the thing. Here's the reason that I would vote for you. I saw you take a stand against the judge.
Yeah.
I saw you stand with a backbone, and I'm like, that's what we need.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Here we go. And I invite you to stay with us. We're
Sure.
going to cover some more of these things that are breaking around the country for everyone that's watching. Well-respected attorney and former prosecutor Sidney Powell, as we told you on Monday, is no longer officially with the presidential's legal team, but she has not given up uncovering fraud that she says took place on a large scale during the election. In fact, she said on Tuesday she plans to file a lawsuit alleging widespread voter fraud in Georgia's voting machines and what she called foreign intrusion into the U.S. election. This is what she said last night on Fox Business with Lou Dobbs about the owners of the voting firms. Watch this.
There's no doubt that the software was created and used in Venezuela to control the elections and make sure that Hugo Chavez was always reelected as the dictator of Venezuela in what appeared to be, quote, free and fair elections, end quote. But they were manipulated by the software used in the Dominion machines and used by other machines in the United States, frankly. And we are just continuing to be inundated by evidence of all the frauds here and every manner and means of fraud you could possibly think of.
You heard us yesterday talk about Senator Colbeck, and he said the other side has the jigsaw puzzle box of what the picture looks like. But he said we've put together the edges of the puzzle now and are starting to put the middle together as well. So more's coming out. We'll see more and more of this.
Yeah, and just remember, when the Sidney Powell story came out, Greg, people were like, oh, Sidney Powell's not on. Well, she's still on the case. I mean, she's still, because she's a patriot and she believes in the Constitution. And again, you're going to hear that common theme on this program anyway. The Constitution matters. And any elected official or someone that's running for office, I would ask them, what do you feel about the Constitution? And find out their answer, and listen to what they say, because they don't always say the right thing.
And in those party platforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
Because they go by those platforms. They really do.
President Trump reportedly plans to pardon his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn before he finishes his term. Axios cited two sources with direct knowledge of the discussions and reported the development. Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to federal investigators in 2017, but the revelation of FBI agents targeting Flynn led to the Justice Department seeking to drop the case. It remains in legal limbo after a judge refused to act on the Justice Department's request. Also, we have a clip showing reporters yelling at President Trump after his news conference yesterday. Take a watch.
Pardons before leaving office. Will you be issuing a pardon for yourself?
Mr. President, will you invite President-elect Biden?
Now, I don't know if you could hear them, Greg, but they said, Mr. President, are you going to pardon yourself?
Well, now what this was, he pardoned the turkey, which has been done since the time of Lincoln. This is a tradition. It's a symbolic thing where, and by the way, the two turkeys yesterday that were pardoned were Corn and Cobb, and they were pardoned by the president, which he does every year going into Thanksgiving. And then they have to yell out comments, and it's just a total disregard for the office. Even if you don't like the person, it's a disregard for the office. We showed it, I believe it was yesterday, wasn't it, with Vice President Mike Pence. And once again, we're seeing there is a different standard. Speaking of different standards, big tech influence in this election may very well have shifted this election in favor of the candidate of their choice. At least that's what a research psychologist is claiming. As the Epoch Times is reporting, Dr. Robert Epstein believes through search manipulation, big tech companies could have prompted millions of Americans to shift their votes to Biden and essentially cost Donald Trump the election. Epstein told Fox News' Tucker Carlson Google search results were strongly biased in favor of liberals and Democrats. Epstein reportedly had a team monitoring big tech and in the run-up to the 2020 election. We have a clip of that interview with Tucker Carlson right now.
What effect do you think, have you measured, of big tech on the voting outcome this month?
Well, a couple of things that we've looked at so far. First of all, we had 733 field agents in 3 key swing states this year, Arizona, North Carolina, and Florida. And we preserved more than 500,000 ephemeral experiences. That's a lot. That's about 30 times more data than we got in 2016. And we're finding a couple of things that are pretty clear. Number one is that Google's search results were strongly biased in favor of liberals and Democrats. This was not true on Bing or Yahoo. The bias was being shown to pretty much every demographic group we looked at, including conservatives. So in fact, conservatives got slightly more liberal bias in their search results than liberals did. How do you account for that? And then we also found what seems to be a smoking gun. That is, we found a period of days when the vote reminder on Google's homepage was being sent only to liberals. Not one of our conservative field agents received a vote reminder during those days. The good news is, on that 4th day that we were monitoring, we went public with some of our findings, and Google backed off.
That's a great. What Tucker's doing is wonderful. Here's the thing. They didn't cover the Hunter Biden story. They didn't cover even positive stories in the eyes of the president. We have watched him, the big media, I called him the godless media. I'm not coming off of it. The godless media, high tech, and all of these things come together.
Yeah.
And voting machines and all of it. It was a coup.
Well, and you have been, you've been victim to that media not being very friendly and very fair either, haven't you?
They are not. And then they're surprised when I don't want to get an interview. They're like, call it, let's get an interview. And I'm like, no. I remember last time I did that when I didn't really know what I was doing and thought people should just know my story, and then they turn it into something crazy. I just don't understand.
Which makes it hard to get your message out, right?
It is, and that's why I think my social media got so huge, because people can go straight to the source and just ask me. I also give my personal cell phone number out to every person I meet.
Yeah.
And if you ever have a doubt, just call me.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about the president's Twitter account so often. People, I wish he wouldn't tweet, but I've said this so many times. It's really the only way that he has to communicate to the American people, because as you've seen, we've reported the news media will not give him a fair shake. They will not report things fairly. They will not say things that are correct or accurate. So he has to do that.
Or they'll hide it.
Or they'll hide
it. Social media, Twitter buried the Hunter Biden story from a newspaper.
Yep.
Well, I think the number 4 newspaper in the country. They buried it and wouldn't even let that come out.
Well, there was an eye-popping report that has just come out from the Media Research Center, which conducted a survey. It shows how the mainstream media's decision not to cover certain news stories impacted the presidential election. According to the Federalist, a new survey shows that 17% of Biden voters would not have voted for the Biden-Harris ticket if they had known about one of the 8 stories suppressed by big tech and the mainstream media. It asked 1,750 Biden voters in 7 swing states if they were aware of certain issues around Joe Biden and his family and some of the successes of the Trump administration. The topics included the Tara Reade sexual assault allegation, the Hunter Biden laptop story, Kamala Harris's extremely liberal record in the Senate, the third quarter economic jump in the U.S., America's energy independence, and the success of Operation Warp Speed. None of those, Greg, were covered.
What Operation Warp Speed, if you don't know what that is, that's the coronavirus vaccine. That's what that is. And here we have it. What should have taken years took months. And, then they spread the lie that President Trump didn't do anything. No, if you'll remember, we could show you the timeline, and you can go to the website America Stands and find it, the timeline of what was happening. While he was being impeached, remember that now, the Democrats were impeaching him. He shut down travel from China to the United States while that was happening. Joe Biden called him a racist for doing so and was against it. Nancy Pelosi said, go to Chinatown in your city. She went to Chinatown and said, we shouldn't be like this. This was all happening while he was busy. He was doing things, but they won't tell you that. And they've outright lied to you, America.
Well, that doesn't include all the hypocrisy either. Nancy Pelosi going to get her hair done and telling everybody to stay home and telling people they can't drink on Thanksgiving. So what does that have to do with coronavirus?
Right. Now, wait a minute. The irony of that, she went and got her hair done. You got thrown in jail for it.
Correct. And she wants to say that she was
up.
better than everybody else.
She was set up, yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's not a very smart lady if she was set up, and she doesn't need to be number 3.
Right. Wow. Well, we know this, that the rules don't apply to them. And that's
right.
what you just need to know.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked you, how do we know you're not going to change if you go to Austin?
Well, I think that I'm the only person that has been a real person going into the government. Right now, you have to be an attorney with connections or a billionaire or something else. And I think that this COVID thing actually gave me, a real person, an opportunity to get into government. And if I can do it, I can endorse other real people and we can start getting our government back.
Shelley, we have a lot of people that watch this network that love God, they love the Constitution. How can they be praying for you? And how can they, some may be living in your district, but a lot don't. How can they pray for you?
I think that the best prayer that I can get is to have God continue to show me the way and lead the way, because obviously this is so new to me and I don't want to blow it making silly mistakes and just trying to be myself. There's a lot of political games that are being played and I don't want to. I just want to be myself and get in and help Texas. That's it. You mentioned political games. I found it very interesting that one of the talking heads on the news media made a comment that Joe Biden was not going to be political. He's not going to be political. I think it was Andrea Mitchell. Is that right, guys? If you've got that, watch this.
They are now being told that it is not going to be political. And Joe Biden is saying, these are people, this is a team who's going to tell me, this team will tell me what I need to know, not what I want to know. That is a big change.
Yeah, all of those people we've seen before, they all came from the Obama administration and other things.
They're all career politicians.
They're all career politicians, and they're all insiders, and they're not going to be political.
Yeah. That's a joke.
Sorry,
of course, that's what you're going to have to deal with when you get to Austin.
Well, you know what? Biden's team also ran a commercial with a blonde salon owner saying, "I support Biden." Like, that's political. It wasn't me, but we all know who they were trying to portray. So it's just crazy.
Okay, we've got I'm going to cutting in here. We just got breaking news. We just heard that a judge in Pennsylvania blocked the certification of the election results for the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah. Now, we're going to stay on top of that. Judge blocked certification in Pennsylvania. We're going to stay on top of that. That just broke. And we'll get you more information this afternoon at 4 Central Time, 5 Eastern, when we come back on the air. Yeah. When I saw you stand before the judge, and I've been to traffic court. I mean, I've never been to anything.
It's not as scary.
Yeah,
Trust me.
I've been, to me, that was a little scary.
Right.
One time I was in traffic court. It was a little intimidating, and everybody's sitting there listening to you. I'm just being honest.
Right. Yeah, red lights and going against.
Yeah, when I saw you stand, though, and you had your phone in your hand and you were standing there, and I looked at my wife and we were at home and I went, "That's a Daniel moment." You remember Daniel would not bow.
That's right.
And just stood there in defiance. And I was so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And made me proud to be a Texan.
Absolutely.
I just admitted I'm a Texan.
Wow.
How about that? Made me proud. But
breaking news.
That's what needs to. They make fun of me all the time because I'm the only non-Texan here. That's the kind of thing it's going to take for all of you is to have a backbone of steel anchored in concrete and begin to take a stand and push back. It's your right.
You can't
because
be silent.
It's
anymore.
we the people.
Yeah, we can't be.
We have to stand up because the left is always going to be louder than us. And although we're thinking that we should be doing things, people are not stepping out, and we need to.
Wow. We need to. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's truly an honor. And the election is when?
December 19th.
December 19th.
Early voting December 9th.
Early voting December 9th, December 19th. And
6 days before Christmas. Thanks, Governor Abbott.
Shelley, there you go. What a better Christmas present could you give to the state of Texas? ShelleyLuther.org is the website. We encourage you to go
If we've learned one thing, Greg, your vote matters.
How close was it? How close is the runoff?
There were 6 of us in the initial election, and I won. I beat everybody, but the spread was 164 votes.
Wow.
164 votes. Your vote does matter. You have to be involved. It's no longer that you can just stand on the sidelines anymore. There's no Switzerland anymore.
That's right.
And you got to, you know what I mean by that when I say that? No neutrals. You got to be involved. Brother Copeland says it this way: your vote is your seed, and you sow that seed. God has given you one vote, and you need to use it. December the 9th, early voting. December 19th is the voting here in Texas for our new next state senator.
District 30.
District 30. Here we go. Join us for America Stands and the team every day at this time. We'll also be back here this afternoon at 5 p.m. for Central Time, and we'll see you then for sure. Tim?
Yeah, it's been a good day. Make sure if you live here in Texas and Georgia, runoff elections, any runoff election, make sure you go and you vote.
Amen. All right, we'll see you again this afternoon. Remember this: God loves you and we love you, and Jesus is Lord. We'll see you soon.
Bless you, everybody.
You're watching the Victory Channel.
Jesus is Lord.
Make your day count. Make the most of every minute. This is your day to shine. Make it count. 'Cause when we're fully in it, we can make a difference in each other's lives. This is the day. Make it count.
Hi there, welcome to Make Your Day Count. My name is Lindsay Roberts, and I am very grateful that you joined me. I'm thankful that you joined me during this Thanksgiving time. You know, it's a good time to remind ourselves to use those words. I'm grateful. I give thanks. Give thanks. Have an attitude of gratitude. We can have an attitude of whining, griping, and complaining so fast, as they say, your heads will spin. But we can also make a choice. Choose this. We can make a choice to have an attitude of gratitude.